Shalom, beloveds of the King. Praise Abba Yahuwah. Here we are again today, and we are looking at our Torah portion. As we are looking at this Torah portion today of Pinchas, and as we start moving towards our final countdown in terms of the book of Numbers, where we're coming towards the end of this beautiful book of Bamidbar, of where we've been walking a journey with the Father through the wilderness, and much that we have to be able to listen and to understand what the Father, because Bamidbar is where He is speaking, and what are we speaking, and what is He speaking, and are we learning from our mistakes, and are we learning from our trials and our tests in the wilderness? And this is what we need to understand. We will keep writing the same test until we come and have a different mindset and a different understanding and a different way of looking at it. And this is what I have truly understood in my life, is that we are no different to the Israelites in the wilderness. We will keep going around the same mountain and complaining about the same thing until we change our attitude towards the situation. And this is the one thing that I really have understood in this week, that I have to make a decision to understand certain things in my life are just never going to change. I'm always going to have people coming up against me. I'm always going to have the persecution because of the call that is on my life, and not just the call that is on my life, but if we are called to follow Messiah, if that is what He went through, no servant is greater than his master. And so we are going to go through the same. So instead of allowing all these things to be able to get to me, which I many times do, I have to just be at peace to say, praise the Father. The enemy doesn't want his word to go forth. And because of that, there's always going to be the critics that stand on the sidelines and want to be able to be used by the enemy to come and throw stones. And in the meantime, we just have to stay faithful and continue to run the race that the Father's put before us. And we are not going to please everybody. And we are not going to be able to please people when what we speak is going to come up against their belief systems, or going to come up against their mindsets, going to come up against what they enjoy in their lives. They're not going to just accept it. So, today, we are looking at Pinchas, and that is why it is so important to understand that we need to come to peace. We need to come to peace when we stand for righteousness. We will have peace, and this is what we must decide to do. So let us pray. Abba Yahuwah, I just want to praise You, and I just want to thank You, Father. I thank You for the lessons that You are giving us in this book of Bamidbar, where Your Israelites went through so many trials and tests, and because of the way that they behave and because of the things that they do, this is the very reason why they come under such destruction, because they don't seem to learn from their mistakes, and they keep having to open up their mouths and speak the same things and go around the same mountain. And that is why they remained in the wilderness and never entered into the promised land. Because at the end of the day, we have to understand that we have to be able to become like brass, where we are going to be able to stand and for truth, and nothing is going to move us. And so we need to be like Pinchas. Pinchas was zealous. He was zealous for the Father's truth. He was zealous for the Father's word. He was zealous in order to be able to stand for Abba Yahuwah's ways, or else an entire camp would have been destroyed if someone did not take a stand. And this is what we've got to realize, that at many times, if somebody doesn't take a stand, and the problem is that many times when that one person takes a stand, that is the person that is going to be able to come under the greatest persecution, because they've took a stand. They're not going to stand for what's unjust and unrighteous, but they're going to stand for what's righteous. And when one takes a stand, it's never easy. But Father knows. He sets people aside. He's the one who calls. He's the one who puts people in position. He's the one who has anointed and called people. We cannot anoint and call ourselves. He's the one that anoints. He's the one that equips. He's the one that calls, and He's the one that will release. So we cannot lay claim to things of ourselves, but we need to trust the Father in His process, in what He will do at His appointed time. And so, Abba, my Father, I just want to thank You that I bring this teaching before Your throne of grace right now, and I thank You, Father. Speak to my heart and speak through my lips the very oracles that is going to come from Your heart for this Torah portion that needs to be preached. And so I thank You, Father, that You alone will be able to come and speak Your very oracles, and that You would open up the Word in order for us to be able to understand Your heartbeat in what it is that You want to reveal to us in this Torah portion. And so, Father, I thank You that I can just commit myself to You right now, and I say that it's not by might, it's not by power, but it's by Your Ruach HaKodesh. And so I praise and I thank You for this in Yeshua's name. So we are looking at Pinchas, and Pinchas is Torah portion Numbers 25:10 to Numbers 30 verse 1, and our Haftorah is 1 Kings 18:46 to 19:21. And so we are looking at this Torah portion, and Pinchas means mouth of brass. So at the end of the day, Pinchas' name meant a mouth of brass, and he was going to raise up to have to be the Father's high priest. And Pinchas, or he was going to have to be one that was going to seriously stand for the Father, a priest that was going to stand for Him. And brass, when we look at it in Scripture, it is a symbol of what is firm, a symbol of what is strong and lasting, like the gates of brass, like hooves of brass, walls of brass, hardness, insensibility in sin. So they're not given to sin, they will stand. So it brings out inner truth. That's what it really stands for. It's going to bring out inner truth. So if our mouth will speak truth and be firm in truth, we are going to receive the covenant of peace, because that's exactly what was given to Pinchas. Pinchas was the son of Eleazar, and in line to be able to be high priest. Eleazar was the high priest, but he was in line to be, he was one of Eleazar's sons. And he was a priest. And he was ardent, and he stood, and he was zealous for the Father. And therefore there's a covenant of peace that gets made with him. Because if it was not for him, the plague would have destroyed the people of Israel. So the Father will raise up a leader that may be able to stand. And they have to stand and speak the truth and be firm in the truth that they stand for, so that they may be able to bring deliverance to a people. So we are going to look at this Numbers chapter 25, and we're going to, I know that this is part of the previous Torah portion, but as I said, I would look at it from this Torah portion, and we're looking from Numbers 25 from verse 1. And Israel dwelt in Shittim, and the people began to whore with the daughters of Moab. How interesting that what was the very thing that Balaam could not do? He could not curse the people because Father said that he blessed them. How do you go around cursing people that haven't done anything? And yet people will choose to do that. People will choose to go around cursing people that have done absolutely nothing. But yet they try and curse them with their words and curse them with their mouths. And yet they are people that are not doing anything. And that is why the Father will not allow His people to be able to be cursed if they haven't done anything wrong. Because He's the one who declares the curse. He's the one that says, blessing if you obey, curse if you disobey. So who declares the curse? He's the one who declares the curse. Because He's already told us that there's blessing for when we obey and there's curse for when we disobey. So somehow Balaam knew that, you see, he couldn't curse that which the Father has blessed. But if he gets them to go into disobedience, then the curse is going to come upon them. I'm sure word will have traveled of how many times they would be in rebellion, where destruction would have come upon them. And so it says, and they invited the people to the slaughterings of their mighty ones, and the people ate and bowed down to their mighty ones. Now, this is the children of Israel that have been led by Moshe, that have seen the mighty miracles of the Father, that have seen His hand in everything that He has done for them. But now they would go and bow down to other mighty ones. Do you see how easily we can become enticed? And it says, and thus Israel was joined to Baal Peor, and the displeasure of Yahuwah burnt against Israel. So do you understand why the Father was so against Balaam, and why He says in Revelation, where He comes up against the children of, where He comes up against Balaam, and He really stands against Balaam in Revelation 2. Let's just go have a look at this Revelation chapter 2. Where He says, and we're reading from verses 14 and 15, but I hold, and this is from the church of Pergamos, which is where the seat of Satan is. And he says, but I hold a few matters against you, because you have there those who adhere to the teaching of Balaam, who taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel. So you see, he taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel, to eat food offered to idols and commit whoring. So you also have those who adhere to the teaching of the Nicolaitans, which teachings I hate. Repent, or else I shall come to you speedily and fight against you with the sword of my mouth. So interesting how it's Pinchas's name that is meaning mouth of brass. And Pinchas had to stop whoring. And it's to this very church of Pergamos, which is where the seat of Satan is, that is where Balaam taught Balak to put a stumbling block before the children of Israel to get them to commit whoring. And so do you see, he knew he wasn't going to come right in cursing them, but he also knew that if they were to stumble in their disobedience, the Father would bring the curse upon them. And so here we see that Yahuwah said to Moshe, take all the leaders of the people and hang them up before Yahuwah, before the sun, so that the burning displeasure of Yahuwah turns away from Israel. And Moshe said to the judges of Israel, each one of you kill his men who were joined to Baal Peor. Now you see, now there's a great killing. So there is a great lesson for us in these few scriptures. And we have a look and we see that, one of the children of Israel came and brought to his brothers a Midianite woman before the eyes of Moshe and before the eyes of the congregation of the children of Israel, who were weeping at the door of the tent of appointment. And when Pinchas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, saw it, he rose up from among the congregation and took a spear in his hand, and he went after the man of Israel into the tent and thrust both of them through, the man of Israel and the woman through her belly. Thus the plague among the children of Israel came to a stop. So it had to take one zealous man. You see, those who died in the plague were 24,000 people. So because of this false prophet that put a stumbling block to get them to continue in the whoring of this whore of Babylon. Do you understand why the Father is telling us to come out of mixed seed? Do you understand how important this is? Because the enemy was able to get to the Israelites to fall. Why? By being able to get them to be able to come under the curse of the Father by having to sin, by bowing down to idols. And here we see that 24,000 people died because the plague came upon them, because of their sexual sin and bowing down to another god. Abba's anger rose up against them. And the one thing that we must understand, Father doesn't take very lightly to mixed seed. This was part of the mixed seed. There was mixed seed going on within them, and the Father did not want this mixed seed. And we have to understand that mixing with the world and mixing with doctrines of demons doesn't go down very well with the Father. So when we have a look at verse 11, and it says, Pinchas, son of Eleazar, son of Aaron, the priest, has turned back my wrath from the children of Israel, because he was ardent with my ardor in their midst, so that I did not consume the children of Israel in my ardor. Therefore say, see, I'm giving him my covenant of peace. So you understand what his name means. So his name means the mouth of brass. Now, interesting that it's in this very scripture of Revelation that we had a look at, that Revelation chapter 2 in the church of Pergamos, where he says, I will smite you with a sword in my mouth. And this is the very name that is given to Pinchas, is mouth of brass, because he has to stand for the truth. He has to do that. He has to take authority and stop the destruction. So let's just quickly go here again, where he says, repent, or I shall come to you speedily and fight against them with the sword of my mouth. And the sword of his mouth is the word, and that's the truth. And he who has an ear, hear what the Spirit says to the assemblies. To him who overcomes, I shall give the hidden manna to eat. So the hidden manna is going to be the truth of his word. And I shall give him a white stone, and on the stone a renewed name, which no one knows except him who receives it. So this is where we see there was the sharp two-edged sword in the mouth of the Father. And so understanding that this is the false prophetic, this is where the truth, it gets mixed with the lie. So this is where we've got to understand, what was Balaam? Balaam was a prophet of Baal. He was a Baal prophet, but yet he was able to speak the truth and not curse the people. So he still prophesied that which the Father told him to do. But in the end of the day, he was still a prophet of Baal, and he put a stumbling block and told Balak how to put a stumbling block before the people to get the people to fall. And so at the end of the day, it's only the sword of the truth of the word that's going to be able to get us to stand, because we need to be able to have hardness. We need to be like the gates of brass that are not going to be moved. So that is why in our mouth we will speak the truth and be firm in the truth. We will receive the covenant of peace, because he then received the covenant of peace. So what does this being ardent, what does this really mean? So ardent is he was zealous, he was passionate, he had great enthusiasm to provoke to jealous anger. So he was provoked to jealous anger, and in his jealous anger he stood for the Father's truth and put the spear through two people. In verse 13 it says that, and it shall be to him and to his seed after him a covenant of an everlasting priesthood, because he was ardent for his allure and made atonement for the children of Israel. So here we see that we need to be a priesthood. Father is raising up a new priesthood, and this priesthood is a priesthood that has the truth in their mouths. They speak the truth. They are not going to be moved by lies. And they've come out of Babylon. They've come out of all the mixed seed. And they are the ones that are zealous, and they are passionate for the Father's truth. They stand for his righteous ways in this hour. They are those who walk in spirit and truth. They walk in the truth of the fullness of the word from Genesis to Revelation. This is not just about a people that are going to walk in truth in keeping Torah. I need you to understand that this is a people that are crucifying their flesh, and they are being led by the Ruach of Yahuwah in spirit and in truth. So they keep the truth of the word, but they are walking out they are zealous for the Father's way and are crucifying their flesh to be able to allow the Father to have his way. And they stand in righteousness in this hour, and Abba will give them the covenant of peace. And that they are those that stand in the gap, and they keep speaking truth. They keep interceding even in the sight of destruction. So they are those that will stand and intercede. They see the enemy coming in like a flood, and they will stand and they will intercede, and they will do what the Father asks them to do. Let's read Numbers 25:14. And the name of the man of Israel who was struck with the Midianite woman was Zimri, son of Zalu, a leader of the father's house among the Shemonites. And the name of the Midianite woman who was struck was Cosbi. So you see, who was the Midianites? That was Balak from the Midianites. And what was he run by? Fear. The Israelites hadn't done anything to them. They'd heard the reports, but they didn't do anything to them. But already because of the fear, they wanted to curse them and destroy them before they did anything to them. So Cosbi, the daughter of Tsur, he was the head of the people of a father's house in Midian. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, distress the Midianites, and you shall strike them. For they distressed you with their tricks, with which they deceive you in the matter of Peor, and in the matter of Cosbi, the daughter of the leader of Midian, their sister, who struck in the day of the plague because of Peor. So when we look at the word, because the Midianite woman was Zimri, what does Zimri mean? Zimri means my music, which comes from the root word, which is H2174, which comes from the root word of H2167, Zamar, which means to sing, to praise, to make music, to sing. So that was her name, Zimri, which means my music, which comes from Zamar, which means to sing, to praise, to make music. Salul means weighed, to be weighed, and Cosbi means my lie. So let's look at what came up against Israel. So Cosbi means my lie, to tell a lie, to be a liar, to deceive. So you see, they came with an agenda, with a plan, to deceive the children of Israel, to put a stumbling block before them so that they would fall. Now it's interesting because Joshua himself talks about those that will put a stumbling block before his people and to cause them to stumble, to be able to not keep his word and not keep his ways. And in Matthew, this is just coming to me, so please bear with me. I'm going to see that I can find it. Here it is. In Matthew, it's just coming up to me now. In Matthew chapter 13, if we go have a look and see, in the parable of the I shall open my mouth in parables, and I shall put forth, I'm reading from Matthew chapter 13 from verse 35. And what was hidden from the foundations of the world. Now remember, it says he's going to give you the hidden manna. So the hidden manna is to be able to give you the hidden revelation of the word that is there. And it says, then having sent the crowds away. Okay, so he said, explain the parable of a man comes out and sows seed, and then they grew, and then in the night, so let's just see, the tares and the wheat. So in Matthew chapter 13, it says another parable. He put before them, saying, the rain of the heavens has become like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while the men slept, his enemy came and sowed darnel, the weeds among the wheat, and went away. And when the blade sprouted and bore fruit, then the darnel also appeared, and the servants of the master of the house came and said, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? From where does it have darnel? And he said to them, an enemy has done this. And the servants said to him, do you wish then that we go and gather them out? But he said, no, lest while you gather up the darnel, you also uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest, and at the time of the harvest I shall say to the reapers, first gather the darnel, bind them in bundles, and to burn them, but gather the wheat into my granary. So now he starts to explain this. And he says, in answering, he said to them in verse 37 of Matthew 13, he who is sowing the good seed is the son of Adam, and the field is the world. And the good seed, these are the sons of the rain, but the darnel are the sons of the wicked one. And the enemy who sowed them is the devil, and the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the messengers. So understand something. There are going to be two people that are going to walk together, and they speak like you, act like you, are part of your people. But in the end, their hearts will expose them for who they are. Because when the time of the harvest comes, they will present themselves to be who they are. Because when the fruit is to be taken in, you will see that there is no fruit in them, because their hearts in the end are still wicked. They have never dealt with the root of the issues in their hearts. And it says, and the harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are the messengers. As the darnel then is gathered and burnt in the fire, so shall be at the end of this age. And the Son of Adam shall send out his messengers, and they shall gather out of his reign all the stumbling blocks and those doing lawlessness. So there are those that have put stumbling blocks before people. They come and they speak the evil out of their mouths, and they do wicked. They're being used by the enemy. Some of them are not willing to submit and surrender to the Father, get their lives in order, and therefore they become stumbling blocks for other people that are trying to follow the Father. And this is what happens many times, even in ministries. People are seriously following the Father, going the way that they should go, and then there comes this darnel, the weeds that come in and get sown, and they come and they speak the evil seeds in people's ears, and the people believe, and then they fall off. Because why? Those people have gone and sown stumbling blocks in the midst of the people that are hearing the truth of the word, and those doing lawlessness. So these are the ones that are going to be gathered. It's those that are going to cause a stumbling block. This is exactly what we see was happening here. There was a stumbling block that was put before the children of Israel, and this was the plan that came from a false prophet. So do you see, when you still have mixed seed in you, you will become a stumbling block for other people. And shall throw them into the furnace of the fire. There shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. Because why? Where does the wailing and the gnashing of teeth come? Many will come to me in that day and say, but Yeshua, we cast out demons in your name. We did these great mighty things in your name. And he says, depart from me, you children of iniquity. You practiced lawlessness. So there are those that are going to come out that have been practicing lawlessness, but then there are others that have become, they might walk a path, but they are a stumbling block because of the things that they do. Instead of their mouths being a mouth of bronze that is to be able to speak the truth, they come like a serpent and they start to speak up against the work of the Father. Then the righteous shall shine forth as the sun in the reign of their Father, and he who has an ear to hear, let him hear. So you see, those that will bring many to righteousness shall shine as the firmament of the heavens. Because why? They are speaking the truth out of their mouth, and this is the people that they are going to draw in. And so do you see, what is it that is being perverted? So if we have a look and we see what is it that is being perverted here that we must understand. And Zimri means praise, singing, and then the Salu means weighed, to be weighed, and then Cosby means a lie, a liar. So what is it that normally happens? The enemy will always come in to pervert our worship. It will always bring deception and lies. Abba is weighing our worship. And our worship is the way that we serve him. Our worship is what is being spoken out of our mouths. And this is being weighed in scales to see if it is contaminated with mixed seed. And to see if we will allow ourselves to be open to the doctrines of demons and to be open to people coming to speak evil reports in our ears. So when we have a look at verses 17, distress the Midianites, and you shall strike them, for they distressed you with their tricks, with which they deceived you in the matter. And so we see the mixed seed comes in to take our worship from our Father and to take us from the right path of truth and to take us on another path. So you were on the path of truth. You were walking with the Father in the way of the Father, and you were following Messiah in the path that he put you on. But then there comes a darnel. There comes one that is being sown in by the enemy and comes to be able to speak destruction. And comes to be able to take our worship from the Father, our walk with the Father, to our works of our flesh, to an idolatrous thing that will come into our life, that even that which looks good, sounds good, is still being put there to lead you astray. And to focus on ourselves, and we become the gods of our own lives that we serve, because everything that comes our way is either been put there by the enemy or put there by the Father. So I put before you life and death, choose life. Not every path, just because it looks good and sounds good, means to say that it's the path of the Father, because the Father is the one who wants to lead and guide, but the enemy will also lead you astray on another path. And this is the path of self, to be able to get you to turn to yourself as opposed to turning to the Father. And so all these false religious systems and these false priests and false prophets and false people that come with a serpent tongue to be able to speak in our lives, it's going to be about self, how you must be raised up. It's all about you being on your throne and not Yahuwah. And that this is the reason why we need to crucify our flesh. So if it's going to lead you back to self, if it's going to lead you back about you yourself doing something to be able to raise yourself up, then you must understand this has been sown by the enemy. So when we have a look at Numbers 27, verses 12 to 14, so Numbers 26 is all about numbering, taking the census, and now we get to Numbers 27 from verse 12, and it says, "And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, go up into this mountain, Abarim, and see the land which I have given to the children of Israel. And when you have seen it, you also shall be gathered to your people as Aaron your brother was gathered, because you rebelled against my mouth." So you see, this Torah portion is very much about the mouth. And that is why it's interesting, because Pinchas's name means mouth of brass. And so it's very much speaking about the mouth. And so he turns around and he says, because you rebelled against my mouth in the wilderness of sin, in the strife of the congregation, to set me apart at the waters before their eyes. These were the waters of Meribah at Kadesh in the wilderness of sin. And Moshe spoke to Yahuwah, saying, let Yahuwah, the Elohim of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the congregation. So here we see that Moses sees his promised land. And we can have all the prophetic words over our lives, but our actions and our unbelief will keep us out of our promised land. So because of his arrogance and pride, he was kept out of his promised land. What is it that can come into our lives that we can be so close to entering into our promised land that the enemy will come and sow something in the camp in order to be able to keep you from your promised land? Because this is exactly what came into the camp of the Israelites, to be able to keep them from them entering in their promised land. 24,000 of them died. And Moses got irritated with the people because, once again, instead of them seeing what the Father has done, instead of them seeing the goodness of what the Father has done, they keep complaining about the same problem. We have no water. We have no food. And this is the same thing. We need water. You brought us into the wilderness to die. And so the whole time it keeps speaking this problem. And so that is why we now need to be able to understand that Father is wanting to be able to come now and say to Moses, putting a precedence in showing, because of that which you have spoken and your rebellion, because you did not reveal me to the people. I told you to speak to the rock, not to strike the rock, but in your anger you struck the rock. Therefore, he's being kept out of this promised land. And so we have to understand that we can have all the prophetic words, we can have all the promises of the Father, but what is the attitude of our heart? Don't just rely on your prophetic word that you have received. Abba wants to bring it into fulfillment, but you must bend under his rod of discipline to bring it to pass. So we have to bend under the Father's rod of discipline, and we have to go through the process. Now you see, Moses didn't want to go through the process of the griping, the moaning, and the complaining. The Father will bring the rod of correction in our lives to get us to bend in that area that we do not want to bend. When we're finally at peace with where we find ourselves, and we stop complaining to the Father. Stop complaining about where you are. Stop complaining about what is going on around you. You will see yourself coming out of that wilderness. But if you're going to continue to gripe, moan, and complain about where you find yourself, you are going to continue to go around the mountain another time. Then from Numbers 27, from verses 15, And this is when Moses says, the allure of the spirits of all flesh, appoint a man over the congregation who goes out before them and comes in before them, who leads them out and brings them in, so that the congregation of Yahuwah be not like sheep without a shepherd. So the Father wants us to have shepherds in our lives. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, take Yehoshua son of Nun with you, a man in whom is the Spirit, and you shall lay your hands on him, and shall set him before Eleazar the priest, and before all the congregation, and give him command before their eyes, and shall put some of your esteem. So he will put some of his glory upon him, so that all the congregation of the children of Israel obey him. So you see, it's a man filled with the Spirit. It's a man that's going to reflect the Father's glory. And he is to stand. And who put his Spirit in him? The Father. Who is going to put his glory on him? The Father. Nothing that you will have done of yourself. So not all this thing that you're trying to establish of yourself is going to be able to put the Father's glory, or to be able to put the Father's Spirit within you. And he shall put your own esteem upon him, command before his eyes, and shall put some of your esteem upon him, so that all the congregation of Israel shall obey him. And he is to stand before Eleazar the priest, who shall inquire before Yahuwah for him by right ruling for the Urim. And his word they go out at his word they go out, and at his word they come in, both he and all the children of Israel with him, all the congregation. And Moshe did all as Yahuwah commanded him, and took Yehoshua and set him before Eleazar the priest and before the congregation, and laid his hands on him and commissioned him as Yahuwah commanded by the hand of Moshe. So you see, when the Father is going to send out a leader, they will be anointed and appointed by the one whom the Father will be able to come to be able to release the person to do what needs to be done. So they will be sent forth by Abba Yahuwah, not because they've raised themselves up and now thought that they're going to be sent forth. So here we see Moses. So here Abba will appoint his leader, not a leader that is qualified out of a Bible school, out of a mission field, or out of whatever that is that people raise up appointed people, because now they are come out of Bible school, and now that they've come out of Bible school, they're going to be appointed now as being able to be a pastor or a shepherd or a leader. No. Let's see what the criteria was. They were to be filled with the Spirit. So they're going to be filled with the Spirit. They're not those that are going to be led by the flesh. They are filled with the Spirit. And they have spirit and truth. And there was the glory, because it says, and you will put some of your esteem upon him. So the glory of the Father is going to be upon that people, that will automatically draw people to them, because it's the glory of Yahuwah that will draw the people to the person, because it's got nothing to do with that person. Please, it's got nothing to do with the person. It's got everything to do with the Father's glory that will be upon the person, and the person will be led by the Father's Spirit and truth. So if we have a look in Numbers 13 verses 16, Moshe changed Joshua's name from Hoshea. So if we go look in Numbers 13 verses 16, I'm not going to go there. Joshua's name was changed to Hoshea, which means salvation. But when he changed his name to Yehoshua, which is Yahushua. Now Yehoshua, which is actually, there's no O, so it's actually Yahushua, means Yahuwah is salvation. So Yahushua is the one who is Yahuwah is salvation. So every time we speak the name of Yahushua, we are speaking Yahuwah is salvation. Yahuwah is salvation. He is the salvation. Not just salvation. Yahuwah is salvation. Because Yahuwah and Yahushua are one. They are echad. You cannot separate them. They are echad. That's why when you speak the name of Yahushua, you are saying Yahuwah is salvation. Not just salvation. That's why it's not Yahusha and it's not Yeshua. That just is salvation. But it is Yahuwah is salvation. Yahushua is Yahuwah is salvation. That is why Yeshua's name comes from Joshua's name. That is Yahushua. That's what we've got to understand. So, in Numbers chapter 28, we have a look and we see that once again, the Father is going to be able to give us instructions on how to keep his feasts. And so, again, we are looking at these feasts, and I'm not going to go into detail of it because we have already covered it in Exodus, we've covered it in Leviticus, and now once again in Numbers chapter 28, we are looking at the feasts once again. So if we just read, I'm just going to read the first few scriptures, and it says in Numbers chapter 28 verses 1, and Yahuwah spoke to Moshe saying, command the children, command. So here clearly how he puts it, command the children of Israel, and you shall say to them, take heed to bring my offering, my food for my offerings made by fire as a sweet fragrance to me at their appointed time. And you shall say to them, this is the offering made by fire, which you bring to Yahuwah, 2 male lambs, a year old, perfect ones, daily, a continual ascending offering. The one lamb you prepare in the morning, and the other lamb you prepare between the evenings. And it's interesting because Yeshua was condemned in the morning, and between the evenings he was sacrificed, he died between the evenings. So this 2 lambs is basically how Yeshua fulfills the fullness of the fact that he was the lamb. So it was the 2 lambs. 1 lamb you prepare in the morning, and the other lamb you prepare between the evenings. So at 9 o'clock in the morning, he was condemned to death. At 12 o'clock, he was crucified. And at 3 o'clock the afternoon, he died when he became the ultimate lamb of the sacrifice. So we know that all of this is basically going to speak about the feasts. So I'm just going to share it with you, verses 9 and 10. It talks about the significance of keeping the Sabbath and the offerings for the Sabbath. And so the Sabbath is spoken of. Verses 16 to 17, we are to keep the Passover and unleavened bread. And so it talks about the Passover, the unleavened bread, and then how to be able to prepare ourselves for the first fruits. Then when we get to verse 26, we are looking at Shavuot. Then in Numbers 29 verses 1, it's the first day of the 7th month that you are to keep Yom Teruah. And then in Numbers 29 verses 7, you are to keep Yom Kippur. And then it tells you that you are to be able to afflict your being, and you are to be able to set apart that day, do no civil work. And then in Numbers chapter 29 verses 12, on the 15th day you are to keep Sukkot. And that is the feast for 7 days. And then on the 8th day will be a holy convocation, a high holy Sabbath unto the Father on the 8th day of the feast. Then in Numbers 29 verses 39, so in Numbers 29 verses 39 it says, these you prepare. So it's talking about the feasts. These you prepare to Yahuwah at your appointed times, besides your vowed offerings and your voluntary offerings, as your ascending offerings and your grain offerings, as your drink offerings and your peace offerings. So these are all the offerings that you are having to offer at the feasts. and we understand that Yahushua has fulfilled all these offerings. We've had a look at this in Leviticus, that we've understood that Yahushua came to fulfill every one of these offerings, and even at the feasts, he came to fulfill, except the feasts that are going to still be fulfilled. That is in the end, the feast of Yom Teruah, and we know that again, Yom Kippur, he's going to become the one that is going to come and judge the nations of the world. And but he's already atoned. His blood was already atoned when he died. That he's already taken his blood and already came and gave it on the mercy seat for us. And then obviously the wedding feast of the Feast of Sukkot. So we are going to have a look at some of the scriptures just in the renewed covenant. Let's read 2 Corinthians 11. Second Corinthians chapter 11. From verse 1, and it says, I wish that you would bear with me in a little folly, but indeed you are bearing with me. For I am jealous for you with a jealousy according to Alua. So here we see that Shaul, Paul, is speaking that he was also zealous for Alua. He was jealous for Alua, just like Pinchas. For I gave you in marriage to one husband, to present you as an innocent maiden to Messiah. So we have been presented to one husband, to Abba Yahuwah, with our Messiah, the one that we are going to be betrothed to. We are betrothed to him, but the consummation of the marriage is only going to take place when he comes. But I am afraid. See exactly what happened with at Baal Pahur, with what happened with Balaam, that was able to told Balak how to put a stumbling block before the people to be able to sow the darnel, sow the disobedience, the disobedience that they went into. But I am afraid lest as the serpent deceived Hava by his trickery, so your minds shall be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Messiah. So you see, instead of us having the simplicity of following Messiah Yahushua, these people want to go into all these things. Then all of a sudden it's because we are a flat earth, and then it's because it's this, and then it's because it's that. And now all of a sudden we've got to have 10 different ways of having to keep a calendar, and now we're making it about all these things, as opposed to making it about following Messiah Yahushua. And as we follow him, he's going to lead us on the path that he has got for us. For indeed, if he who is coming proclaims another Yahushua, so you see, which is the other Yahushua that has been proclaimed? The Yahushua that doesn't want to keep the feasts. The Yahushua, you see, he was already warning us about the gospel that was going to be proclaimed. Here we are being warned, people, about this doctrine of demon that was going to be proclaimed in these last days. A doctrine that is going to be a doctrine of another Messiah. A Messiah that doesn't keep his feasts. A Messiah that doesn't keep his ways. Remember that it's in this Pinchas Torah portion that we once again have the feasts and the Sabbath. A Messiah that is being presented to us that is not allowing us to keep feasts. A Messiah that is getting us to eat unclean food. A Messiah that is getting us to be able to not keep a Sabbath. A Messiah that is getting us to be all about my best life now. A Messiah that is getting us to become self-centered and looking internally within ourselves, as opposed to being able to lay down our lives and loving the Father and loving our neighbor as we love ourselves, and being a servant in the kingdom for the Father. But instead, a Messiah that has been offered to us that is more about self-centeredness, a gospel that is about prosperity and wealth and health and everything else about us living our best life now on this earth. There's nothing about a death. There's nothing about picking up your cross, denying yourself and follow him. And sometimes that means you're going to go through hardships. You're going to go through persecution. You're going to have to be able to be crucified by people and the things that they're going to do and the things that they're going to say. And then other times it's hardships that you go through because your own family members are going to turn against you. Your own you maybe have to relocate from where you are. You have to be able to follow the Father in what he does. And all the things that this is not easy. But yet, the Father is requiring it of us. But that is not the gospel that has been given to us now. It's a gospel it's about myself being on a throne. It's about myself being enriched. It's about my self-grandeur, about myself. It's all about self being on a throne. It's not about him and his kingdom. And this is what we've got to understand. If we are not serving the Father and his kingdom and serving his people and being about his kingdom, then what are you serving? You have to ask yourself that question. What gospel have you received? Is it a gospel that even though I'm keeping the feasts and I'm keeping all these things, is it still about myself? Am I truly being led by the Ruach? When the Father says to me, give this away, or give this to that one, or lay this down, or do whatever. No, I've got to worry about myself first before I can do it. What are we doing? So he says, for indeed, if he who is coming proclaims another Yahushua, whom we have not proclaimed, or if you receive a different spirit, which you have not received, or a different good news, which you have not accepted, you put up with it well enough. So do you see, Paul, Shaul, was already warning of another gospel, of another Messiah that's going to be called Jesus, that is going to lead the people into a different gospel. That is not the gospel that has been given to us of the foundation of our Torah, and about laying down of our flesh, laying down our lives, picking up our cross, and following him. And that's what we've got to understand. We are to walk in the footsteps of our Messiah. No servant is greater than his master. If he had to suffer, so will we. If he was persecuted, so will we. If he was put down, if he was betrayed, so will we be. So we've got to start understanding, what do we need to understand? That we will go through many things in the days ahead. Psalm 37 verse 11. Let's go look at Psalm 37 verse 11 says, but the meek ones shall inherit the earth and delight themselves in plenty of peace. So you see, there's going to be the parable of the wheat and the tares, and the wheat and then the tares. So the wheat was sown, but the tares will grow amongst the wheat and will look like them and sound like them. But when the time comes, you will see the self-centeredness. You will see the arrogance and the pride, where they will not want to submit to the ways of the Father. And they will kick up against everything that is of the Spirit of the Father. And that is when you will see, when the harvest is to come in, that's when you truly see the difference between the wheat and the tares. Because stumbling blocks will be put in there that will turn the hearts of the people in another direction. But the meek ones, the humble ones, shall inherit the earth and delight themselves in plenty of peace. That's why it was the covenant of peace. What is meek? Meek is the word for H6035, which is anav, and that is to be poor, to be humble, to be afflicted, to be meek, to be weak, to be humble, to be lowly. And that is why the Father wants to work amongst the lowly, amongst the poor, amongst the humble. Many times it's very difficult. That's why he says it is difficult for the rich man to enter into the kingdom, like it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. Why? Because the rich man prides himself in his riches and he doesn't understand humility. He has his way in many things. He can throw his weight around because he's got the money to do it. But the poor, the humble, the lowly, the afflicted, the meek, they have to learn to rely on the Father. It comes from the original word, which is H6031, which is ana, which is to obey self, which is to submit self. So when we submit self, they will have peace. So if we are humble, we will die in our flesh, and we will inherit the earth, and we will have peace, because we will be the submitted, surrendered ones. Galatians 3, from verses 26 to 29. You see, and that's why he says, who has bewitched you as well? No wonder he says, who has bewitched you? Because we go on a path and we are serving the Father, and then all of a sudden we go off the path. And why? Because we start to follow a doctrine of demon. Who has bewitched you? You were going on the right path, and then what did you do? So, Galatians 3 from verses 26. See, in verse 3, this is what I'm saying. O senseless, in verse 1, O senseless Galatians, who has put you under a spell not to obey the truth, before whose eyes Yahushua was clearly portrayed among you as impaled. So you see, how many people are falling from the truth of the word and they're no longer following Messiah Yahushua. Now they're starting to follow Judaism and wanting to get involved in Judaism. And now they're drawing away from Messiah Yahushua and the simplicity of following Messiah to want to now follow rabbis and doing all these rabbinical things. Who has bewitched you? Who has bewitched you? That now you want to join up with Brother Judah, and now you want to learn from rabbis, all these things, where the simplicity of the cross has been given to us, where we are to be able to walk in spirit and truth, keep the simplicity of the truth of the word, and be able to follow Messiah and crucify our flesh. And so, here we see where he says, for you are all sons of Eloah through belief in Messiah Yahushua. All of us are sons of Yahuwah. Not just a selected group of people to say, oh, these are the children of Israel. These are the children of the Father. They are the house of Israel. No, he says, for you are all sons of Eloah through the belief in Messiah Yahushua. So actually, what makes us the sons of Yahuwah? What makes us his true children? What makes us his true people? When we have surrender to Messiah Yahushua. For as many as you who were immersed into Messiah have put on Messiah. There is no Yehudi or Greek. Now this is a word for you. If you are still on about the Jews, and that these are the Father's chosen people, I bring you back to Galatians. Galatians chapter 3 from verses 28. There is no Jew, Yehudi or Greek. There is no slave or free. There is not male and female. For those of you that are in the Torah movement that do not allow women to preach because you say a woman is not supposed to preach because it's only a job of a man. Yet at the end of the day in Ephesians chapter 4, he turned around and he says, I called some children to be apostles, prophets, evangelists, teachers, pastors. He called some. And so what do you do with those that are apostles, prophets, shepherds? He didn't say that it's only men and women. Because the Spirit of Yahuwah was put both on men, women, and children. So there is not male and female, for you are all one in Messiah Yahushua. And if you are of Messiah, then you are seed of Abraham and heirs according to the promise. Let us get our doctrines right, beloveds. Let us get back to the truth of the doctrines of the truth of the word. Who are the children of Israel? Who are the true children of the Father? We are all sons of the Father through Messiah Yahushua. For as many of you as were immersed into Messiah, so if you have not been immersed into Messiah, you are not the children of the Father. And that is why they're going to weep when they look upon the one whom they have pierced. They need to look upon the one whom they have pierced and accept him in order to be the children of the Father. Because there's neither Greek nor Gentile. There is neither Gentile, there's neither Jew nor Gentile, there's neither Yehudi or Greek. We are all one in Messiah Yahushua. We are all one children of Abraham when we've received Messiah Yahushua. We've got to get back to the truth of the word. Romans 12, verses 1 to 2. Romans 12. I call upon you therefore, brothers, through the compassion of Elohim, to present your bodies a living offering, set apart, well-pleasing to Elohim, your reasonable worship, and do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So you see, we are to be transformed by the renewing of our mind. We are not to be conformed to this world and the ways of this world. So, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you prove what is the good and well-pleasing and perfect desire of Elohim. That is what the Father is wanting. That we will be transformed by the renewing of your mind, and that we will be well-pleasing to Elohim, and we will offer him the worship that is not going to be contaminated with mixed seed. And we have to be transformed. And we have to become a living offering set apart unto the Father. Because in Revelation, let me see, Revelation 5, verse 10. So, in Revelation 5 verse 10 says, and made us sovereigns and priests of our Elohim, and we shall reign upon the earth, because he is raising up kings and priests. Let's look and see in Revelation 1 verses 5, and from Yahushua Messiah, the trustworthy witness, the firstborn from the dead, the ruler of the sovereign of the earth, to him who loved us and washed us from our sins in his blood, and has made us sovereigns and priests to Elohim and Father. To him be the esteemed rule forever and ever. So he's the one raising up a new priesthood. But a priesthood that is going to follow Messiah Yahushua. Not a priesthood that is mixed with mixed seed. Not mixed in Baal worship, and not mixed with Baal worship of rabbis and Baal worship of Christianity's false doctrines, but the true set apart doctrines of the Father. So we look at 1 Kings, our half Torah, 1 Kings 18 verse 46, and it tells us in 1 Kings 18. This is when you must understand that Elijah has just had an encounter with the prophets of Baal. He's just slain 400 prophets of Baal, plus in total it was like over 800 prophets. And now he's gone into a cave, fearing for his life. And so in 1 Kings 18 verse 46 it says, and the hand of Yahuwah was on Eliyahu, and he girded up his loins and ran ahead of Ahab to the entrance of Yezreel. And then we read from verse 1 of chapter 19. And when Ahab reported to Jezebel all that Eliyahu had done, also how he slew all the prophets with the sword, Jezebel sent a messenger to Eliyahu, saying, so let the mighty ones do to me, and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. And he feared, and rose up, and ran for his life, and went to Beersheba, which belongs to Yehudah, and left his servant there. And he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a broom tree, and prayed that he might die, and said, It is enough now, Yahuwah, take my life, for I am no better than my fathers. So, at the end of the day, are we laying down our lives for the Father? Or are we still about our kingdoms? What are we fearing? So, to what degree do we allow fear to grip our heart? To what degree? To what degree do we allow ourselves to be able to be subjected to fear? Because fear is running rampage on the earth. Yesterday I was speaking to a woman as I went to this material shop, and she was talking to me and saying, you know, Natalia, if you look at the people's faces, the people are living in fear and despair. I said, really? Because, you know, I don't notice those things because those are not the kind of people that I'm surrounded by. So I'm not so much in the world because I'm more surrounded by Abba Yahuwah's people. So I don't really look at that. I don't go to malls. I don't go to shops. I mean, you know, we stay far away from all these places. So it's not like I'm confronting this every day, and I'm not in the marketplace, that's for sure. But her being in the marketplace, this is what she was telling me. I said, really? She said, just look at the people's faces. They're living in fear and despair. So it's the fear of Yahuwah that needs to come upon the people, that they will learn to fear him and turn from their wicked ways. And so we finish off with 1 Kings chapter 19 from verses 10. And it says, And he said, I have been very jealous for Yahuwah, Elu of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have thrown down your slaughter places, and they have killed your prophets with the sword, and I am left alone. And they seek my life to take it. So yeah, Elijah is just as zealous as Pinchas, and Elijah has that sword in his mouth, the truth in his mouth, and he's willing to speak before the children of Israel. And he says, choose you this day whom you will serve. And his job was to turn the hearts of the people back to the Father because they'd gone astray. And so he says clearly in in 1 Kings chapter 18, Elijah says in verse 21, And Eliyahu came to the people and said, How long would you keep hopping between two opinions? If Yahuwah is Eluah, follow him, and if Baal, follow him. But the people answered him not a word. And so understand, he slew, look and see. Verse 19, And now send and gather all Israel to me on Mount Carmel, the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah who eat at Jezebel's table. And he was zealous to be able to stand, and he destroyed them as the fire came down and consumed them. And now he's fearing for his life. And he said, go out. And so verse 11 of 1 Kings chapter 19, go out and stand on the mountain before Yahuwah, and see Yahuwah passed by, and a great and strong wind tearing the mountains and breaking the rocks in pieces before Yahuwah. Yahuwah was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. Yahuwah was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. Yahuwah was not in the fire. So what is going to come up against us? The storms of life. And we need to stand through the storms of life. And then there's going to be the earthquake, the shaking that's going to come. We are to hold on to Yahuwah even through the shaking. And then the fire is going to come upon us. But he was not in the fire. Because why? In the midst of all of this, he was in the still small voice. So Abba Yahuwah will be the small still voice when there's going to be the rocks that are going to be falling and the wind and the storm that is coming. Abba Yahuwah will be our small, still voice. The earthquakes all around us that are going to be shaking, and the earth is going to shake. Abba Yahuwah is the small, still voice. Then the fire of the war and rumors of war and all the war that is going to go around us, Abba Yahuwah is going to be the small, still voice. So even though these storms are going to rage around us, Abba is in the still, small voice. And it came to be with that when Eliyahu heard it, that he wrapped his face in his robe and went out and stood at the cave opening, and see, a voice came to him and said, "What are you doing here, Eliyahu?" So do you see how important it is that we come aside and hear the small, still voice of the Father in the midst of our storms? And he said, "I have been very jealous for Yahuwah, Elu of hosts, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have thrown down your slaughter places, and they have killed your prophets with the sword, and I am left, I alone, and they seek my life to take it." And Yahuwah said to him, "Go return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and you shall go in and anoint Hazael as sovereign over Aram, and anoint Jehu, son of Nimshi, as sovereign over Israel, and anoint Elisha, son of Shaphat, of Abel Meholah, as prophet in your place." So you see, just like Moses had to be able to anoint Joshua, Father will send the people that need to be sent to anoint you and appoint you into the call that he has called you to. If he has not anointed and appointed you, then how do you raise yourself up? There are many self-appointed, self-raising people now that are going to fall because they came out of a system, but they were not appointed by the Father. They were appointed by a system, but not by the Father. The Father is the one that has told him, "Go and anoint this king. Go and anoint this prophet. Go and anoint the people that I have for you to be able to anoint, because you have been given instruction. I'm going to take you, but you are going to be able to have a successor." And so he says, "And it shall be that whoever escapes the sword of Hazael, Jehu does kill. And whoever escapes from the sword of Jehu, Elisha does kill. And I shall leave 7,000 in Israel, all whose knees have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him." And he went from there and found Elisha the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen. So you see, he's going to be the one that is eventually going to be able to raise up for the 12 tribes of the house of Israel as well. And Eliyahu passed by him and threw his robe on him. And he left the oxen and ran after Eliyahu and said, "Please, let me kiss my father and my mother and then follow you." And he said, "Go, turn back, for what have I done to you?" And he turned back from him and took the yoke of oxen and slaughtered them and cooked their flesh, and using the implements of the oxen, and gave it to the people, and they ate. Then he rose up and followed Eliyahu and became his servant. So you see, those 12 oxen was like the sacrifice that he gave in order to, he slew them, didn't worry about his mother and his father. He went and followed Eliyahu because he knew that he's got to be able to follow the man of Yahuwah to be able to do what the Father called him to do. So he left all, but interesting, the 12 oxen, 12 tribes, he'll become a prophet that is going to raise up, that's going to once again have to speak for the 12 tribes of the house of Israel. Because Eliyahu built the altar for the 12 tribes of the house of Israel. So he built the altar. So when we look and we see here in 1 Kings 18 from verses 31, it says, "And Eliyahu took 12 stones according to the number of the 12 tribes, the 12 tribes of the sons of Yaakov, to whom the word of Yahuwah had come, saying, Israel is your name. Israel, Yasharal is who they will become in the last days." And so Elisha was going to have to become a prophet that was going to speak for the 12 tribes of the house of Israel, because they needed to be able to come in. And so this is where we will end off today. Let us pray. Abba Yahuwah, I praise you and I thank you for your word, my Father. I thank you that we too may be able to raise up and not fear man, but fear you. That we become zealous for you. So Elijah was zealous for you, but then feared man because of the storm, because of all these things. And he was fearing man, running because of a Jezebel. Father, I pray that your prophets will not run from Jezebel. And Jezebel is very alive in the earth at the moment. And just like there's a Jezebel spirit, there is a spirit of Python, this Python spirit that is the snake in the grass, that is this spirit that of Leviathan that is wanting to come and silence your prophets and destroy your prophets and destroy your leaders in the earth. But I pray, my Father, that you will raise up a Yehu that's going to be able to kill Jezebel and be able to kill her, and she will be eaten by the dogs outside the camp. And that spirit will be silenced once and for all, and your prophets will no longer run from a spirit of Jezebel, but that they will stand and they will slay this Jezebel spirit, because they will not succumb to fear. But the only one that they will fear is you and you alone. And that the fear of Yahuwah is the one that will be within them, and that the fear of Yahuwah is going to be by what they stand, so that they would not sin, but they will speak your words with authority and power to be able to set your people free. I praise and I thank you for this word today that you have delivered to us in Yahushua's name. Amen.